Okay, so Joker. Folie, this sequel, right? Nobody really expected it, and honestly, looking at the reactions now, maybe nobody wanted it.
Yeah,
This time, it's a musical.
a musical.
And the reviews, well, let's just say they're about as harmonious as a cat fight.
Right.
We're seeing brilliant on one side and staggeringly stupid on the other. So I think a lot of people are probably wondering what is going on with this movie.
Yeah, it's definitely been a divisive one.
Yeah.
But I think to understand these reactions, we need to kind of rewind a bit.
Okay.
Go back to the first Joker film. I mean, that was a phenomenon.
Yeah.
Dark, gritty, really got under people's skin.
It really did. It wasn't your typical comic book movie.
No, not at all.
Awards buzz, breaking box office records. It felt like Joker was in a completely different league.
Exactly. And the key thing to remember, it was intended to be a standalone story.
That's right.
So I can see why, when a sequel was announced, in a musical no less, people were surprised.
People were floored.
Yeah.
A musical with Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I was skeptical. Big time.
Yeah.
Talk about a curveball.
Definitely.
And we got to talk about the elephant in the room, Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn.
Oh, yeah.
Those are some big shoes to fill.
Huge shoes to fill, especially after Margot Robbie. I mean,
right.
How do you follow that?
Exactly. And then on top of that, they just threw a massive budget at this film.
Oh, yeah. Folie, we're talking a massive increase. The studio clearly saw those dollar signs after the first film.
Yeah.
Threw a cool $200 million at this sequel.
Wow.
More than triple the original.
They were really banking on this one.
It seems like it. Hoping for another box office smash, but early signs suggest otherwise.
The box office numbers tell a very different story.
Yeah.
And that Cinema Score AD, ouch.
Ouch is right.
I've heard of worse grades in high school, maybe, but for a comic book movie,
Practically unheard of.
almost unheard of.
Really highlights the divisiveness here. This isn't just a few grumpy critics, you know?
Yeah, right.
This is a real disconnect between what people wanted and what they got.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets interesting, because the director, Todd Phillips, almost seems to have expected this.
You mean that anti-fan service theory?
Exactly.
Tell me more about that.
A lot of critics, they're saying this film is intentionally designed to subvert expectations, even to the point of, like, alienating fans of the original.
Interesting.
Like, he's going out of his way to do something different.
So it's like, instead of giving fans more of what they liked, he's almost daring them to ask why they even wanted a sequel.
Yeah, like, you want more, here's more, but it's not what you think.
Right.
And that ties into this idea of meta-commentary, which is basically art that's commenting on itself or on the genre.
I see.
So Folie, it's almost like it's commenting on fandom itself.
Fandom.
Yeah, that relationship between creators and the fans, always demanding more.
Wow. Okay, so let's unpack this whole anti-fan service thing a bit more.
Right.
What in the film is making people say that?
Well, think about it. You've got musical numbers. You've got Lady Gaga, who's, let's face it, a huge pop icon.
Right.
Even that intro, it's very Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
None of that screams, traditional Joker sequel.
It's true.
These things feel very deliberately jarring. Like Phillips is playing with us and then bam, subverts those expectations.
So instead of giving the fans what they loved, it's like he's trying to make them question why they wanted a sequel in the first place.
Precisely.
So instead of just giving fans more of the same, he's almost like challenging them, making them think about why they even wanted a sequel.
Exactly. And this is where that whole meta-commentary thing comes in.
Right. Like the film is kind of self-aware.
Yeah, like it's aware of itself as a piece of art, and it's commenting on the whole idea of sequels and fandom and all that.
Okay, so when a critic says this movie is unspeakably self-indulgent, are they basically saying Phillips is more interested in making some grand statement than in actually telling a good story?
That's one way to look at it. But, even the critics who kind of admire the film's, boldness don't always love it.
Right.
There are a lot of differing opinions out there about whether the musical format really works, whether Lady Gaga really nails it as Harley Quinn, and whether the film ultimately has anything meaningful to say, or if it's just trying to shock people for no reason.
You mentioned some critics finding those musical numbers jarring. What's that all about? I mean, were they just poorly done, or is it more about the contrast, the sharp turn from the first movie?
It's definitely more about the contrast. Like, the music itself, people seem to like it. Some even say it's surprisingly good for what it is.
Okay.
But it's more about the sudden shift. Imagine going from this dark, gritty realism to Joaquin Phoenix as Joker suddenly singing and dancing.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a little strange.
It's a bold choice, for sure, and I think for some viewers, it just doesn't work.
All right, so we've got this whole idea of turning expectations on their head, the commentary on fandom itself. It's a lot to take in, but putting aside everything the film isn't, what are people saying about what it is?
Right. Well, even the most negative reviews tend to agree on a few things. First off, the performances are incredible. Both Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga completely own these characters.
So even if you hate the movie itself, you can appreciate their talent.
Yeah, exactly. Second, visually, it's stunning. Yeah. The cinematography, the costumes, the whole look of it, top-notch.
Sounds like they spared no expense on the visual side of things, even if the story's dividing audiences. So are we saying this is one of those films that people are going to be arguing about for years? Like, you'll have people calling it a masterpiece while others say it's a complete mess?
Yeah, I think that's a safe bet. And that's what makes Folie Deux so fascinating.
Even if it doesn't always work.
Yeah, because you have to react to it. It makes you think about what a comic book movie can be, what you expect from one.
It's almost like he's saying, you want a sequel, fine, here's your sequel, but I'm doing it my way, even if it makes you uncomfortable.
Right, exactly. And that kind of risk-taking is rare these days, especially with such a huge franchise.
Yeah, good point. So after all this, did Joker Folie Deux deliver?
That depends. If you're looking for a fun, easy-to-watch sequel, then probably not. You'll probably be disappointed.
Sounds like Phillips really threw the rule book out the window for this one. But what about people who are willing to go along with his vision? What will they find?
Well, we've already talked about the performances. They're fantastic. Phoenix, he just disappears into the role again. He's got this manic energy this time around that's really something.
Wow.
And Lady Gaga, she's really good.
It's interesting, even in a movie this divisive, everyone seems to agree on the strength of the acting.
It really shows you how talented these people are, both in front of the camera and behind it. This is a well-made film, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Visually amazing, and those musical numbers, they're impressive purely from a technical point of view.
You keep mentioning that unsettling tone. What do you mean by that? How does it actually play out in the movie?
Well, it's hard to put into words, really. It's like, imagine a fever dream, but set to this, like, haunting jazz score.
Okay.
And then, moments of violence, but also these weird flashes of, I don't know, tenderness almost.
Wow.
It really keeps you guessing. You never know what's coming next.
And speaking of unexpected, we have to talk about that ending. The reviews have hinted at something else.
Oh, yeah?
What can you tell us without spoiling it for our listeners?
Let's just say it's not your typical comic book movie ending. Not even close.
How so?
It's ambiguous, open to interpretation. Some might even say it's just plain bizarre.
Bizarre, huh?
Yeah. Whether you like it or not, it really depends on how much you can handle ambiguity, I guess, and how you feel about the rest of the film leading up to it.
So someone looking for a nice, neat, tied-up ending, they might be disappointed.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
But for those who don't mind leaving with more questions than answers,
Folie Deux definitely delivers on that front, no question.
we've come full circle back to subverting expectations, haven't we?
Absolutely.
This film seems to be all about keeping the audience on its toes.
100%. And, that's bold in itself.
It really is.
Especially these days when you have all these sequels that are so predictable. Joker. Folie Deux is different, even if that means not everyone will like it.
So where does that leave us? Masterpiece or mess? What's the final word on this film?
Honestly, I don't think there is a final word. And that's kind of the point.
How so?
It's not so easily categorized. A bold experiment, for sure. Like, Phillips swung for the fences with this one, and whether he connected with you or not, that's up to you to decide.
To wrap things up then, it sounds like Joker. Folie Deux is something that stays with you, for better or worse.
100%.
A film you want to talk about, argue about even. A film that asks way more questions than it answers.
Yeah.
And maybe in a world with so many safe, predictable sequels, that's exactly the kind of film we need.
Maybe we do.
And on that note, we'll leave you to contemplate the wild world of Joker. Folie Deux. Will you dive headfirst into the chaos, or make a run for it? The choice, as always, is yours.